Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
We made it to Wednesday already here in the Sports IQ. Glad you're with us. Larry Smith here. We've got a fantastic show coming up. In a couple of minutes, we'll talk Ole Miss football. Evie Van Pelt with RebelWalk.com is joining us. She's been on the show before. She's just fantastic. Obviously, Lane Kiffin's name's being talked about almost on a daily basis, and not because of the Rebels' big game this weekend against South Carolina. Obviously, though, the coaching changes. We'll talk with her in a moment. Also, in a bit, it's Game 5 of the World Series coming up. We'll talk with Peter Chawaga as well, and get his insights on the Blue Jays and Dodgers as we're about to head back to Toronto. Big games. We've got some big names coming up here later on this week. We'll talk with Scott Roach of Heavy.com about all the college football changes going on. Great conversation. We'll talk with him tomorrow. Also, we'll catch up with our young man. We're really impressed with him. We talked to him a few weeks ago, Henry Elhoffen with Vanderbilt. He's a sports editor there for the student paper, The Hustler. Great insights, and a guy you'll really enjoy. If you haven't heard him before, we'll have him on the show tomorrow. Later, we'll also talk about the SCORE Act on Friday. We've got Virginia coming up as well. I mentioned last week about the friend who is a former NFL player discussing his situation right now with possible a brain injury. And potentially, you never know. You can't really diagnose it for sure while the person is alive, but someone who believes that possibly he may be suffering from CTE. I will share with you, I did have that conversation with him one evening this week. We will bring that to you here in the coming days, and we'll let you know when that happens. Really powerful conversation, and just no holds barred in terms of what the NFL does for players after they retire, if they are in crisis, what they don't do, and even what happens with these players when they get injured and when they return to action. He shares that as well. So that's all coming up here on Sports IQ. We're glad you're with us. And by the way, we did get a question. We're on radio stations all over Georgia, Atlanta, up in Illinois, Lincoln, Nebraska. We're always adding stations as well, looking to expand that. We are on Spotify. We are on Apple as well. Be sure to go there and lock us in. Wherever you find your podcast, we're there. Our man Josh Ewing takes care of that for us. So, okay, let's get to headlines. The World Series, we now know, will be decided in Toronto Friday or Saturday, because last night Toronto came in and got the win in Game 4, dramatic 6-2 win, coming back from that marathon 18-inning game one night earlier. One of maybe the greatest World Series game ever. Hard to think of another one. Freddie Freeman getting the game-winning hit there, but it's now tied at 2. Vlad Guerrero Jr. with the 2-run homer off Shohei Ohtani in the third. As Ohtani, by the way, just couldn't come through. Look, he was tired, right? It had a playoff record 9 times on base in the marathon Game 3 the night before. 4 runs allowed, 6 hits allowed, 6 Ks over 6 plus innings. 0 for 3 at the plate for Ohtani, 2 Ks and 1 walk after he was walked a playoff record 4 times intentionally, 5 times overall, one night earlier. LA suffering just its 3rd loss in its last 14 playoff games. Shane Bieber on the other end, coming off Tommy John surgery last year, returned to the team in August. He was outstanding in his first ever World Series start. 5 1/3 innings pitched, gave up 4 hits. Great job by the 2020 Cy Young Award winner. So it is now tied at 2. Best of 7 series now down to a best of 3. Toronto has home field edge. Game 5 tonight in LA, and it's Savage versus Snell in that one. The NCAA pushing back the date when student athletes and staffers will be allowed to bet on pro games. It was supposed to take place this Saturday, November 1st. They pushed it back to November 22nd. By the way, with this ruling, they still can't bet on college games, but SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, among others, are really pushing back on this. We'll talk more about this in a conversation a bit later on here in the show. But again, that's one of those things. It's the days we're in. It's 2025. It's the era we're in. They've delayed that for right now. We'll talk more about it later. In the NFL, speaking of injuries and that kind of thing, a new Quinnipiac poll says NFL fans want more games despite the risk to players. 60% in the poll voting to expand the season. By the way, half are okay with Bad Bunny as the halftime performer at the Super Bowl. I'll be honest, I don't get it. If you don't like the guest, walk away, watch something else. It's okay. It's not for you. May not be for me. I'm still watching the game. By the way, they're also in favor of moving the Super Bowl to President's Day weekend, so then you could take advantage of having the holiday on the Monday following. Feels like that's probably coming pretty soon. Still in February, so the TV networks still get their ratings, if you will. 4 out of 10 believe the NFL is doing enough to avoid serious injuries. 3 out of 10 in the poll say they're doing too little. So there you go. WNBA, by the way, ESPN reporting that the league has offered to extend the deadline of that collective bargaining agreement, which is scheduled to expire at midnight on Friday. Failure to do so might result in a work stoppage, although, again, negotiations will continue regardless of what they do. Okay, we've got some NBA and NHL stuff coming up here a bit later in the show. We talk obviously a lot about college football as we pivot now to this weekend's games. One of the teams right there in the top 10 most of the season, and it's been, the center of attention for reasons they would like and probably reasons that they wish didn't happen. But anyway, we'll get to all that. Back on the show once again is Evie Van Pelt. She is the founder and publisher of rebelwalk.com, a great site there. Evie, welcome back to Sports IQ.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here with y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. Ole Miss, the Rebels right now. Big game coming up here this weekend, but let's get the elephant out of the room. And obviously, everyone talking about the coaching moves. Producer Tony and I were talking. We go way back to the Stone Ages, like literally, before the internet, almost before computer kind of thing. Like, it's how old we are. We can't think of a time when we had this much movement in October. I mean, usually you struggle, you get to the end of the season, then you fire your coach, whatever. But this has been it's almost insanity to see all the movement that's happened before November.
It really is. I was talking to our photographer that we have for our site, and he's actually an OU grad, so his weekend was a little rough last weekend. But
Right.
The thing is, we were just talking about the sheer amount of buyout money that's being paid out there already. If you think about that, and with James Franklin and now Brian Kelly, it's kind of up in the air. What exactly is Brian Kelly's buyout going to be? But some of these ones, I mean, it's, we're talking some big time money, and you're right. This is not even the end of October.
Yeah, still so many. And we were saying earlier this week on the show that it's conceivable, and it's not out of the question. It's not far fetched that we could see more than half of the SEC programs with new coaches in 2026, with those who've already been pushed out the door, those on their way out the door, those who may leave for other jobs. And that brings me to obviously one of the first mentioned with any job coming up is Lane Kiffin. What's the conversation in Oxford right now, and how does this program stay focused with all the speculation swirling about Lane Kiffin's future?
It's a good question. I think one way they stay focused is this is nothing new, for them. And so, Lane has been at the top of a lot of lists for a while now, and he's, all I can say is he's in his 6th year in Oxford. Last year was the longest. I think at the Arkansas game last year marked the longest that he'd ever been anywhere as a head coach. And so, he's still there. The donations, kind of like back when we had in 2022, when it looked like, maybe he might go to Auburn, all of a sudden there were all these donations to the NIL fund, the Grove Collective and such, because one of his concerns was, am I going to be able to compete, with NIL money? Well, now we're seeing something similar. There was an anonymous to media and fans, not anonymous to Ole Miss, but a $20 million donation that was made after the LSU game. And it was simply to be put toward the coach, the coaching staff, retaining the coach. So I don't know. And there have been like tons of new members to the collective. So I think people are really, in terms of around Oxford, they're used to it. They don't like it that, Florida and LSU are big time jobs. And so, there's that. But there's also the fact that Lane Kiffin's son is a starting quarterback as a sophomore for the high school football team and is really doing well, and his daughter's there. So I think, a lot of folks are watching Lane Kiffin's Twitter. I can tell you that much.
Sure. And I think that there's something to be said for that. I know the situation in Illinois with Brett Bielema, and I remember talking with Mike Farrell early in Bielema's tenure there, and he felt that Bielema was going to use this to kind of, rebuild his college resume and go elsewhere. And I'm like, I don't think that's going to happen this time, because unlike when he was at Wisconsin and Arkansas, he's now married with two young daughters. And when you're a coach and you move around and you're in your 50s now, as Brett is, that means something to actually be able to watch your kids have a regular life. And listen, the millions in any college town, the millions spend very, very well in Oxford or in Gainesville or in Champaign or in State College or wherever. So you're not paying, New York City or LA money for the most part. So
Right,
I think that
right.
means something possibly for the Kiffin family.
I think it does. And I think too, Lane has long told us, the local beat writers, and then I think he was on Pat McAfee earlier this week, and he said, this is not about the money for me. It's not about the money. I mean, I think if you're at 9.5 million or 12 million, or I mean, it's just not about the money. And he said, now Jimmy Sexton hates it when I say that. He's like, it's about the money for me. And Lane actually joked and said that, and so I do know that is true. But you're right. I think there's a piece. I don't know if you had an opportunity to see the E60 documentary that they did on Lane Kiffin, the many lives of Lane Kiffin. But one of the things that a lot of people were struck by is, you're right. He just feels like Oxford is home, and it's going to be hard. I think it's a very hard decision. I also think that, again, I'm not blind to the fact that LSU and Florida are really, they're really big jobs. But I think with the way that college football is now, with the portal and with everything, how soon you can change a roster, Lane Kiffin's got his guys, barring anything crazy happening, headed to the playoffs. Whereas, in the past, that might have been a really hard thing. You would think of LSU and Florida as more likely to win a national title. And I've just heard that that's what's really important to him. Where can he win a natty? And I think nowadays Ole Miss maybe is more positioned to where something like that could happen.
Yeah, and I think that Lane, the issue with him early in his career with the Tennessee, the stuff he said there, and
Mhm.
and I think that, and again, I don't know Lane just from the outside, but somebody that probably matured a bit in his time at
Yes.
Alabama, Nick Saban, and then coming there, what he has done again, like you said, sixth year already, and what he's built. And I've said so many times on this show that I think that we're in an era right now where the brand may not be what it used to be. If you've got quality of life, you've got people who are behind you who, look, LSU, listen, great job, probably the job, right? But if you don't win in 3 years, you're
You're
out.
gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you win a national title in 2019 if you're Orgeron, and then you're fired after what, 2021?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
your point is very, very valid.
Keep seeing that. So, well, the Lane Kiffin story continues, but on the field right now, a game against South Carolina this week. This Rebels obviously 7-1. It's not a perfect season, but I think that from the outside, and maybe you'll agree, the season has gone about as well, considering the injury at quarterback and different things that have happened, about as well as you could have hoped when the season began.
Absolutely. I think that if you would have told folks that Ole Miss after 8 games would be 7-1, and they wouldn't have had their starting quarterback, what they thought was their starting quarterback for, 5 of those games or whatever, I don't think that they would have thought that that was possible. And, I'll be real honest. I think a lot of people looked at the schedule and thought, back to back on the road versus Georgia and Oklahoma, and a game in Oxford with LSU, who, going into the season was highly ranked, and when Ole Miss played them was highly ranked. And so I think there was kind of that LSU, Oklahoma, Georgia, so to come through those games and only have one loss, and to have been up on Georgia in the fourth quarter, but just couldn't get a defensive stop, bless their hearts, to save their life. But 7-1, I think there's not a Rebel who wouldn't have taken that.
No, and the way the schedule plays out right now, there aren't many teams we can look at the schedule moving forward the rest of the season and say, yeah, that looks good, especially the SEC, because every single week is crazy. And take nothing away from Florida or Mississippi State or even the Gamecocks this weekend. But these are games all for Ole Miss should be favored in, and if they execute what they're supposed to do, they should win these 4 games and be in great position to get into the playoff.
They should. I think it's, now it did give me pause. I watched that South Carolina Alabama game this last weekend, and man, South Carolina played tough. So I think last I checked, Ole Miss was maybe 13-point favorites, and I thought that seemed like kind of a lot. But I don't know. I think just Lenore Sellers is always dangerous. So you never know there. But then they play the Citadel, and hopefully they'll get past that one. And then Florida and Florida again, pretty much every game, as Lane Kiffin has said, it's kind of funny. We get the rest of our games at home. Well, the game against Mississippi State, I think that's just a jab at them because they play that game in Starkville, but he just considers it. I guess maybe he's saying Mississippi. I don't know, but they have Florida at home, and I mean, I don't forget what DJ Lagway did to him last
Yeah.
year. He ran all over and carved him up and knocked him out of the playoffs. And, so I think that now you add the intensity of, there are Florida folks who absolutely believe he's going to be coming to them. Fans. I'm not saying administrators or anything like that, but it's just there've been some interesting Twitter battles between Rebels and Gators. So there's that on the table. And then the game against Mississippi State. I mean, y'all probably saw that heartbreaking game for State where they lost to Texas this last weekend after being so far up. But they put up a really good fight. So I think Jeff Levy has got them going in the right direction. I think it's, so you're right. On paper, they're favored in every one of them, but I've covered Ole Miss long enough to know, you never say never with college football these days.
Yeah, and the Egg Bowl is one of those games that, like you said, it's just it's a rivalry game, and so anything's possible. Get into that last weekend of the season. Talking with Evie Van Pelt again. She's the founder publisher of RebelWalk.com. Getting ready for Ole Miss taking on South Carolina here this weekend in Oxford. Talk about the quarterback Trinidad Chala coming in as a transfer from a smaller school, Ferris State, stepping in, and at one part, and still in some circles, still part of the Heisman conversation for his play here for the Rebels this season.
Absolutely. He has been such a pleasure. And the thing that I'm really struck with, he's from Grand Rapids, Michigan, not the tallest guy out there, came from, again, Division II Ferris State. Now he won a national championship with them last year, but again, it was D2 Ferris State. Just a super guy. And I tell you what I think Lane Kiffin really likes about him and maybe why he is out there. So Austin Simmons did get hurt his ankle against Arkansas, I believe it was. But the thing is, at that point in time, Austin had 4 touchdowns, but 4 interceptions. And Lane that's just a no-no. I mean, it's a no-no for anybody, but Lane's a former quarterback, and he just, over the years that I've watched him, the quarterback protecting the ball is absolutely huge. Right now, Trinidad has 9 touchdowns and 1 interception. And I think that one was, maybe like a deflected ball or, something like that. So that Trinidad protects the ball. He also, after this game with Oklahoma, he became the first Ole Miss quarterback with 250 plus yards passing through the first 6 career starts since Eli Manning.
Wow.
So, that's kind of a big deal. And right now, so he's done an excellent job, and he's protected the ball. Super kid. And now everybody in Oxford and at the games, they're waving flags for the country of Trinidad and Tobago. And so you see Trinidad flags all over everywhere in Oxford. So that's kind of cool. But it's funny. He's never been, his Lane said, he hasn't even been out of the country. He hasn't been on an island. But he thinks it's cool too.
That's cool. That's very cool. Yeah. So, and next in the education of college football fans and Ole Miss fans, where is Trinidad and Tobago? Can you pick it out on a map?
No, I can't. Other than I think with all the Hurricane Melissa talk. I had the Weather Channel on, and I think I might have seen Trinidad and Tobago somewhere on the screen. So, because I think the Trinidad caught my eye. But yes,
Right, right. We always hear
yes.
about it for the Olympics, and then otherwise, no idea.
Yeah, exactly. And now his nickname in Oxford is either Trinidaddy or Winadad. So he's got a lot of social media fans and just a super super kid. And the thing that has been amazing to me is there's not been any dissension. Sometimes stuff like that happens. Austin was supposed to come in and be the quarterback, and then this kind of the locker room is rallied around Trinidad, and Austin has rallied around Trinidad. We posted a picture a couple of days ago of at the OU game with Austin with his arm around Trinidad. So that's things like that can really mess up your team if you don't have them going well.
Yeah, the team chemistry, the attitude, the culture, all those things matter, and he's built that. There's no question. Let me ask you this: so the game this weekend, double-digit favorite over South Carolina. We've discussed the schedule moving forward. What's the one thing that concerns you about this team in their games here in November?
Defense, defense, defense. And so I mean, I tell you what, against Georgia, literally, I don't. I'm sure y'all were aware. The defense, the Ole Miss defense, did not make one single stop, not one, the entirety of the game. So now for a long time, Georgia didn't make any stops either. I think Trinidad and the offense had 5 straight touchdowns on their first 5 opening possessions. So that there was that, but not one single stop. And that was really kind of scary. And so we saw a little bit of a different, we saw 4-man rush going on a little bit more at Oklahoma. We saw the guys used a little bit differently. We saw a different linebacker. Andrew Jones came in and did really well. I think he's a Grambling transfer. And so the secondary, the secondary was, a little worrisome against Georgia, but I thought they responded so well against Oklahoma. So I think in my mind, what defense am I going to see against South Carolina? Am I seeing the one who, went into Athens and struggled, or am I going to see the OU one? But I tell you what, Princely, I called him Princely. Prince Will Umanmielen, the younger brother of Princely Umanmielen, who is now playing for the NFL, Prince Will transferred to Ole Miss from Nebraska. He had a heck of a game against Oklahoma, really kind of like his coming out game. And so, that's what I'm really most interested in. I think that offense, I think there's nothing wrong with the offense. So I just personally just need to see how that secondary does and the defensive line.
Well, that's fair. 37 points per game, this Rebels offense. They can score on anybody. They've done that. And we'll see how they handle these next 4 games now and what the postseason brings. It feels like it's one that's going to have Ole Miss a part of it, if not the SEC title game, certainly then the playoff. Evie Van Pelt, always great to talk with you. We appreciate your insights. Enjoy the game in Oxford this weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Such a pleasure and an honor to get to be here with y'all. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you so much. Our best to your family as well. You guys don't know. We talk family like before we come on. It's just kind of somehow we fell into that with Evie, and we love it. So Evie Van Pelt, once again, founder, publisher, rebelwalk.com. Ole Miss hosting South Carolina here this weekend. They're in Oxford. Okay, we've got a lot more Sports IQ coming up. We'll talk, by the way, NCAA gambling right now. Boy, it's going to go in this weekend. There's some delays, things happening. We'll discuss that later on here in the show. You're listening to the Sports IQ.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Some other news right now in college football. A couple of quarterback situations. Texas, Arch Manning in a concussion protocol, so we don't know his status for Longhorns game against Vandy this weekend, top 20 matchup. Arizona State quarterback Sam Leavitt is out. He is in a walking boot, will not play against Iowa State this weekend. Leavitt, the star quarterback there, big player, is a big part of the Sun Devils Big 12 championship team last year. Had the big win over Texas Tech earlier this season as well. knocking the Red Raiders out of the ranks of the undefeated. Left the game twice in that loss to Houston last weekend. Jeff Sims primed to get his second start this weekend. He was the starting quarterback when they lost to Utah earlier this year. In the NBA, 10 games tonight. The Bulls are 3-0, taking on Sacramento in the Windy City. Also, the Lakers at Minnesota. What can Austin Reeves bring? 92 points in his last 2 games, 51 and 41. We'll see if the Lakers can get the win on the road against the T-Wolves and what Reeves brings, again, without Luka and without LeBron. Last night, Philadelphia, the 76ers going to 4-0. They rallied from 16 down to beat Washington 139-134 in overtime. Tyrese Maxey with 39 points and 10 assists. Joel Embiid, 25 points in a season-high 23 minutes as they still are measuring his time as he comes back from injury. The Thunder going to 5-0, defending champs over the Kings 107-101. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the reigning MVP, with 31 points and 9 rebounds in that one. The Warriors, by the way, improved to 4-1. Taking down the Clippers 98-79, and Giannis Antetokounmpo with 37 points, 8 assists, 7 rebounds, make that 8 rebounds, 7 assists, as Milwaukee beat the Knicks on NBC last night, 121-111. By the way, Jalen Brunson with 36 points in loss for the Knicks. Also, Miami over Charlotte in that. In the NHL, just one game tonight, and that is Toronto at Colorado, as all 32 teams played last night. It was, if you wanted puck, boy, you got puck last night. Vegas, by the way, getting 4 goals in the third to get the 6-3 win over the Hurricanes. So the Golden Knights now 6-1-3 on the season. Colorado winning the matchup of one-loss teams, 8-4 over New Jersey. Victor Olofsson with his first career hat trick. He had a 5-point game, 3 goals for the hat trick, 2 assists as well, as the Avalanche snapped New Jersey's 8-game win streak, which tied a franchise record and included a win over the Avalanche Sunday night in New Jersey. All right, stay with us. We'll talk more World Series right up next here on the Sports IQ.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
As we talked about earlier in the show, Game 5 tonight, it's the Blue Jays and Dodgers, and what a thrilling series it has been. We now know that it's going to go, could go the distance, but it's not going to be solved tonight in LA, that's for sure, as this series now tied at 2. Joining us here for the first time, great to have him on Sports IQ, Peter Chawaga. He's a veteran baseball writer, a contributor for Newsweek and Forbes, and it's just, first off, Peter, number one, I know you're a guy who loves baseball. We're just saying at the break, you're like, listen, anytime you get a chance to talk baseball, I'm here for it.
Yeah, that's right. First and foremost, I love baseball. I think any convicted baseball fan like myself is loving the World Series and has had a great season of storylines to enjoy. But I also think it's something that's compelling to kind of the casual fans. And more than usual, I'm seeing a lot of engagement, on my stories, on my coverage, just at the grocery store, as the neighborhood baseball guy. So this has been a great World Series. And here's hoping they keep it up and it does go the distance.
Yeah, I do want to talk about the Game 3. And it was amazing. There's so many storylines. When you see even the network news talking about it, 18 innings, more than 6 hours, 19 pitchers. Ohtani, what he did, first ever with 4 intentional walks, 9 times on base. It just, to me, that this is what if you're a baseball purist, this was pure, total nirvana to watch this game and to take in the series.
Definitely. So again, for somebody who's a hardcore baseball fan, it was nirvana. And you want to see how long they can go. You want to see how deep into the bullpen they're going to go. You're feeling like you get free baseball. So you're already on one historic game. Ohtani's getting on base with extra base hits consistently. Then they intentionally walk him 4 times, which no one has ever done. Then the game's going so long that Yamamoto, who pitched a complete game for the second time in the playoffs, the game before, is warming up in the bullpen, and that's unprecedented. So the chaos, it would never stop for a purist, for a big baseball fan. That was great. I would be surprised if a lot of casual fans made it all the way to whatever time that one ended, but that was free baseball. And I thought it was cool that just kind of it dominated the news the next day that this marathon game had taken place. So many unprecedented things had happened in a single evening. And then, of course, you had Ohtani taking the mound the next day after matching a record for the most times on base in the World Series. So he continues to do historic things. That is obviously a mainstream news story as well. So that's also been great to follow.
Yeah, he's an amazing talent. It's one thing to specialize and do one thing. He does both so well. Didn't get the win last night, but look, you could expect an emotional letdown from either team. But I thought Toronto came through and really did what they needed to do. If you're a championship team, you've got to come back, even the series, and by doing so, they take home field advantage back, and now it's truly anyone's series these next 3 games.
I think that's one of the most exciting things about this series. You can't count out the Blue Jays given how many times they've come back all year, really, in all playoffs. I would never count them out. And then you'll never count out the Dodgers, and you can never really say, oh, Ohtani's going to be tired, like he won't be able to do X, Y, Z. You got to assume he'll continue to, inspire awe and do something you've never seen before the next day. So you can't count either side out. You can't assume anything. And that's probably the biggest reason that this matchup in particular has been such a joy to watch. I expected big things in an exciting series, but it's been, I think, even better than I could have hoped.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we get to best of 3, game 5 tonight. We know we're going to go back to Toronto. And no rest for the weary. Whoever wins this thing, they're going to probably delay it a few days because you need to get some sleep in. I mean, you had the short turnaround for game 4, and now tonight after the game, they'll all be flying back. I don't know, take a red eye back or tomorrow, but you're going to have you have your media availability or workouts on Thursday if they're at Rogers Center. What do you expect to see tonight in this matchup?
If I had to pick right now and just cut to the chase of it, I'm going to pick the Dodgers to bounce back. One reason is that I think when either of these teams have their back up against the wall, they're stepping up and kind of accessing another gear. And I just kind of get the sense that as soon as one team gets the momentum, I'm going to pick the other team to steal it back and get the win. So I'm expecting the Dodgers to, at some point the offense just has to start clicking. It's just a baseball thing. So they're mired in a slump. All playoffs, they haven't quite been the kind of like Hall of Fame caliber offense you'd expect, even with some, huge moments, walk off from Freddie Freeman, insane home runs from Shohei. The rest of the order just isn't doing kind of what the payroll would expect them to do. That in baseball, that just can't persist. I keep betting on that slump to end. And so the Blue Jays have their upstart rookie taking them out again, Trey Savage. He's been very good considering he started, in maybe single A earlier this year, but he did have a rough outing last time out. I think coming into Dodger Stadium after that, the offense really hungry to click, maybe being able to catch up on a little bit of rest, at least compared to the 12 hours they had after the 18 inning game. I'm picking them to click, but at the same time, what do I expect? A close game, anyone's game. I expect the unexpected at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, you've got so many, big bats, big veteran arms on each side. 2 managers, Dave Roberts, the 18 innings. The last 18 inning, the only other 18 inning World Series game. Dave Roberts managed that as well. He was also the skipper in that. A lot of parallels. Do you believe that the strategy, will the managers kind of wait to make some decisions for game 6 and possibly 7, depending on what happens tonight in terms of, do we know for sure who they let's say the Dodgers lose tonight, does that change who they're going to throw out there in game 6, or are these things kind of set?
Well, I think on the Dodgers side, that's why Dave Roberts gets paid the big bucks, but he also has just so many, great options, so many like Ferraris in the garage to go to. I think schedule wise, after Blake Snell goes this game, Yamamoto could be back up. He's pitched so much, but he Robert said he could have gone longer beyond his complete game. So I would have to think if it's a must win, Snell's been great, but Yamamoto, if your season's on the line, he's the guy I would go with. And I think he'd be due up anyway. I think a loss, the only thing that would change is Dave Roberts would say to himself, I don't care how much he's pitched at all. He's going as long as he can go, which might be the case anyway. On the Blue Jay side, I think Gossman should be up either way. But, if I'm John Schneider, the skipper on the Blue Jay side, I'm really hoping Savage can give me at least 4 or 5 innings because that bullpen is tapped. And the starter depth, just compared to the Dodgers, is clearly a weakness in comparison. So just hoping for big things from the rookie today on that side if you're the Blue Jays. But I think you got to see how it goes and shuffle the cards from there. But I would think that we're going to see Yamamoto again on the mound, either with whenever their season is on the line and it's time to win one. He's been the best pitcher in this series for sure.
If Yamamoto goes in Game 6, do you bring back Ohtani Game 7 very quickly?
Great question. And I was, the LA Times columnist Dylan Hernandez did a great story about this either late last night or early this morning. And Shohei was a little bit disappointed with his game, his start last night. I felt like, given everything he's doing as a leadoff hitter, there's a lot to be proud of with the start. But he's big on wanting to go 7 innings, and he's pretty hard on himself on the pitching side. I think he sees himself as a pitcher first and a hitter by choice second. And he's preparing to pitch again. So he is going to be loose and ready in a relief appearance. And the Dodgers bullpen could certainly use, a high leverage arm like his. Remember when Shohei closed out the World Baseball Classic for Team Japan by striking out then teammate Mike Trout? One of the legendary moments of my lifetime in all of baseball. And so I know he can do it. And so I could see him coming back in a high leverage relief role if the situation calls for it. I wouldn't think he'll start another game, especially with, how much they rely on him to be fresh in the leadoff spot hitting. But no, I would not be surprised if he's closing out the World Series or trying to give them their last best chance to win here in the next few games.
Wouldn't that be something in 6 or 7 on the road to come in and pitch a couple of innings relief and close out? Strike out bottom of the 9th, and in Toronto to get the victory. It's unbelievable just what's going to happen here. Well, look into your crystal ball. Are you going to pick a winner here in these next 3 games? Who's our champion when we get to Canada this weekend?
Larry, I'll answer the long way. So going into the series, I wouldn't have bet the farm against the Dodgers. How could you? I might have been secretly rooting for the Blue Jays a little bit as an underdog, like I think a lot of people outside of Southern California, but it's not something I would have been able to bet against. Now that we've gotten to this point, and I can say that Blue Jays are going to bring this series back to Canada and have a chance to extend it or close it out, I'm going to go Blue Jays. I'm ready to bet the farm. And they've totally convinced me that, they can go toe-to-toe with the Goliath here. And at this point, I think they do have all the momentum.
Yeah, I'll throw one question your way. I'll kind of throw it out of left field, no pun intended. If that happens, then it'll still be 25 years and counting since we've had a repeat champion, the Yankees doing it 3 in a row back in 98 to 2000. Why is it that teams can't repeat as champions in today's baseball?
My take is that it's just the nature of the kind of marathon season, the nature of the 7-game series that the World Series comes down to, and just the variability of the sport. I mean, especially since the change to the playoff format, the wild card change, momentum is just so important, and there's really to sustain momentum from one year into the next. So over that many baseball games, it's just not possible unless you have a true juggernaut roster, a la the Derek Jeter Yankees, the Dodgers have assembled that kind of roster, and they're knocking on the door to be the next ones to do it. So it's possible to manufacture that level of talent and that level of momentum. But look at this series. The Dodgers had everything on paper to repeat, have been favorites to repeat the entire time, reloaded with almost as strong of an offseason of acquisitions as they had the year prior. So on paper, had everything to be a dynasty. And the Blue Jays, who are not a bad team this year, but had more ups and downs, have a lot of more misfit toys, so to say, on the roster, just have the heat, just have the momentum, and are playing well at the right time of year. And that is enough to bring them right up to the Dodgers level. I think anyone watching this series would agree. It's hard to say who's the best on the field right now, despite the kind of payroll discrepancy and the name recognition discrepancy. So that speaks to why it's so hard in baseball to form a dynasty in the way that NBA or NFL teams are. It's just so momentum driven. And can you really manufacture that? I think not to a perfect extent as you can in other sports.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fair. That's very fair. We will see what happens here. Dodgers 11-3 here in these playoffs. Can they avoid 2 more losses? We'll find out beginning tonight, Game 5 at home. Hey, Peter Chawaga, appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Larry, thanks for having me. Always happy to talk baseball, especially in October.
All right. We'll reach out again and talk soon. Even though October's ending, we have the offseason, so we'll get your insights on that as well. Peter Chawaga joining us once again, veteran baseball writer, contributor for Newsweek and Forbes, and we're glad to have him here on the show. We'll talk a little more sports coming up, the NCAA and the stuff about betting and whatnot, and what's going on. We'll get into that next, and a fantastic moment of awe. It's all next here in the Sports IQ. He was good. That's why I wanted at that last question. I knew he'd agree.
Absolutely.
He's got, for a 22-year-old, he's got amazing timing. So,
yeah.
Like, my God, we could teach some people, a lot of guys, about that. So stay focused. Stick with the plan. All right, here we go. Sports IQ, D-Block in 3, 2, 1. Well, producer Tony joining us now, and we want to get into, Tony, you and I have been talking really all this week about the betting, the gambling issue at the NCAA right now. Look, this is one, and we've talked privately and we've talked in breaks about this. This feels inevitable that we're going to come to this point. We're going to have to try to reel back, but there are some real pitfalls here with what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, the NCAA moving up this, allowing college kids to gamble on professional sports. Obviously, they can't gamble on college sports. And I agree, they're 18-year-olds. You're treating them as adults with NIL. You're treating them as an adult in college. They have the right to vote. So giving them this right makes sense in one regard, and another regard, it doesn't. I can see Greg Sankey's point, who came out, yesterday and was vehemently against allowing these kids to be able to gamble on professional sports, because you never know what box that's going to open with other gamblers, and it could have an influence on the college game. Look, we're seeing the issues in the NBA game where we don't know what's fact from fiction yet, but some of the things that are out there, you can see how being able to gamble has allowed the influence of gamblers and shady types into the league, perhaps, if some of these allegations are true. And how do you deal with that? The same thing could happen here on the college level.
Yeah. And there have been incidents before, right? I mean, there's the Boston College situation that comes to mind. There's the, Headache Smith, Arizona State. There are some few isolated incidents that we know of. But I will tell you that there is a game I don't want to get into, but you can go, if you care, you can go look this up. There was a game years ago that I attended where a team went 12 of 30 at the free throw line in a major NCAA tournament game, favored team, and their star player went 3 of 10 from the line. And I will tell you, there have been questions since then that, was the fix on, right? We'll never know. But the point is that you're making it a bit easier to get those ne'er-do-wells to allow them a path to get to some of these athletes potentially.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's interesting because when you allow them to gamble on these things, like you said, Larry, there are plenty of shady types involved, even in the legal gambling aspect, right?
Yeah.
You get a little bit behind, you run up some credit card debt, maybe you're looking for a way to get out, maybe somebody hears from somebody who tells another person that this person is, X player's $10,000 in debt. Well, shady person Q, even though this is legal, he's still $10,000 in debt. And shady person Q says, maybe I can get him to help. It's only one game in the regular season, and hey, maybe you have an off night, or hey, maybe you miss a clutch free throw, and just help not cover the spread. Don't lose, and that's all. But the potential is there for all of that with this. So I get treating them like adults, but at the same time, man, you're opening up Pandora's box with all of this. I mean, you're just inviting issues at a time when gambling's never been easier
Right.
in this country. I mean, let's face it, the thought of this when I was a kid at 50 years ago, or in college 40 something years ago, this wasn't even on the radar as being legal. You were worried about the little parlay cards you did with your buddies in college, getting caught and getting kicked out of school. Right.
Yeah. Funny story. 2007, I'm in Vegas for CNN doing a story, Can Pro Sports Play in Vegas? And one of the people I interviewed was the Maloof brothers, right? They own the Kings. At the time, they owned the Palms Hotel. I believe they still do, I think. I think still a lot of their stake in it. But they said back then, in January 2007, they predicted, they said, there will be a time, there will be a pro sports arena here in Vegas where you can actually place bets from your seat. There'll be a device attached to your seat where you can do this. And of course, we thought they were out of their minds. Like, oh, wait, you could bet in the arena? Like you could have a device there that's tied to the game? Like, what do you have, like a separate plexiglass room somewhere in the arena? I mean, come on. That was 2007. And here we are. You and I can bet right here during the show. We can be placing bets, right? On our phones. I mean,
exactly.
It is. Yeah.
It's nothing to place a bet now. There's how many jillion services out there that, sign up for $20, get 50 free, sign up for 10, get 10 free, get whatever the deal is. And just enticing you to gamble. There's lotteries in every state. Look, gambling has never been easier in America.
Yeah.
Which, there are a lot of shady people who don't like that, because when it was shady, that was their domain. Now it's public domain. So they got to get more creative to keep that money coming in. And how do you do that? Well,
yeah, exactly. And we know that in sports, the one thing we've discussed, and look, just being transparent and clear, we're not pointing fingers or blaming, but the one thing you can't do in sports is gamble. I mean, we've seen this. You talk about the great, the great criminals, the great villains in sports. They're gamblers. It's Pete Rose. It's Michael Vick. Tom Brady's name was tainted. Alex Karras, Shoeless Joe Jackson, right? I mean, it's those who gambled or appeared to have gambled. And even if you aren't betting on your games, let's just use Michael Vick's situation, Tony. When you talk about this, here's somebody that he was never accused of betting on games, but the betting he was doing put him in jeopardy in terms of the league. Look, if you're in bed with people who are into the betting gambling world, I think the feeling, and I'm going back to my reporting on this back in the day, the feeling is, well, then if you'll do this and say you get into debt with somebody and you're down 10, 20,000 or more to get even, maybe you do a favor for them and you do something within a game.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to figure all of that out and figure out where you're going with any of those problems. And I just hate to see us, inviting more issues into the college sports. The college sports arena is getting so muddied already. Is it pro? Is it college? Is it, you're just adding another layer to it. Again, I don't see how you stop it, because that if you tried doing what Sankey said and said, no, this is not going to be allowed, somebody's going to file a lawsuit. That's what we do in America now.
Exactly.
You're taking my right away. I'm an adult. I want to be able to do this. It just invites a whole nother set of problems. And gambling on sports, just look at those Black Sox players who were out not eligible for the Hall. Shoeless Joe Jackson, finally gets his name cleared a little bit. Pete Rose and the issues of gambling. It just tainted the whole last 30 years of his life. It's just, is it worth it? Is it worth it?
Yeah, no, agree completely. By the way, the change is supposed to go into effect on Saturday, but the NCAA's, the Division I board voted to delay it yesterday, voted to delay it until November 22nd. So 3-week delay. We'll see if that changes anything. All right, our moment of awe is up next.
If I was your mother and you had a drug problem, I'd grab you by the ear and make you call and get help. You can be in treatment tomorrow and start to get clean in 7 days. Follow Mom's advice and call the Detox and Treatment Helpline now. Write this number down.
877-927-3380. 877-927-3380. That's 877-927-3380.
Time now for a moment of awe. And, we hear so much of people coming through. We don't hear enough stories, people coming through and helping others in need. Greg Biffle, well-known NASCAR driver, 19 victories in his career, more than 500 starts in Cup action. But he's not standing by right now as this hurricane slams into the Caribbean. He is also a registered pilot, and just as he did to help the hurricane victims last year in Western North Carolina and East Tennessee after Hurricane Helene, he is flying into the Caribbean to take aid and try to get people out. He just said, posted on social media, he says, listen, we're trying to coordinate and explore all opportunities by sea, by air for relief efforts, and just says, hey, pray for everyone who was affected. So again, Greg Biffle coming through. By the way, his efforts last year, he won a special award from the National Motorsports Press Association for his efforts last year. He's doing it again. Truly a moment of awe. Sir, we pray for your safety as well as you were doing this. Chef Andres as well, providing meals for those affected. People who do things like this, man, you are what being human is all about. Hey, thanks to our guests coming through today to join us. And thanks to you as well. It's a Wednesday. Have fun tonight with baseball and more NBA and NHL. And we'll do it again tomorrow here on the Sports IQ.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at Sports IQ LS. We'll see you next time.